Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
He's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Capital Hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Capital Hacking Show with Josh McCown and John Edwin. How you doing, buddy?
Great. Today's show was totally different. Interviewing Tyler and Kirk was incredible from Turner Adjusting. There's so many nuggets for real estate investors to know about their insurance policies and their buildings and how to maximize their insurance.
Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like an entrepreneurial journey utilizing their knowledge of insurance. I will say you could learn 3 or 4 ways to find off-market deals listening to this show that would change your whole underwriting and make it almost unbelievable ratio of returns. I think these guys have a lot to share, and they do it in real case studies with real details. You're going to love this episode.
Stay to the end. You're going to get great information.
It's time to dig right into the world of adjusting. I love this stuff, John. Thanks for getting our great guests, Tyler and Kirk, here.
Oh, yeah. And guys, we're excited to have you on and learn so many things about what you do. So please take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us. I'm Tyler Powell. This is my partner, Kirk Leister. And we own Turner Adjusting Group based in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We are licensed public adjusters. And so if you guys have ever wondered, or maybe you've been through, what happens when one of your buildings, your home, your businesses burn down, we're licensed from state insurance departments to work on behalf of the insured, not the insurance company, and prove and present the value of the claim. Yeah. Right. And so go ahead, John.
Yeah, I actually, real quick, I never knew this industry existed 10 years ago, that you could have an adjuster work on your behalf. So anyway, this is a big, there's probably others like me, right, that don't know this. So I'm excited to get to know you, Tyler.
So what's interesting about it is your insurance policies and the ones that you've had your entire, adult life require you to prove and present the value of the claim. So you have most policies have a 60-day period where they want you to, sign a notarized proof of loss that says, hey, here's the values of the damages. And the carrier doesn't have any responsibility to value it. They really are sending out their staff as a customer service thing, as a cost controlling measure to some regard, right? And so it's actually a requirement of the policy that you know how to value your loss.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Just a little aside, Alabama doesn't allow public adjusting. They consider it the unauthorized practice of law, and Alaska simply doesn't recognize it, but you can do it there. So 2 states that, look at it a little bit differently.
So, but you guys do how many states yourselves? I understand the law doesn't hit those 2 states, but how many do you guys like to practice in?
So the majority of our business is in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. We're licensed in Florida, North Carolina, Kansas, Ohio, Colorado,
Iowa, Virgin Islands,
the Virgin Islands.
Maine.
What happens is once you have clients that have been through this, and where you turn, we have another GoBro that is one of our clients, and he had a fire that was the first offer was 1.2 million, and we settled it for 3,997.
Whoa.
And when you have that type of experience, now that doesn't happen on every claim, right? But those people become your advocates. And when they're large property owners, we end up getting licensed wherever they own property, so we can service them, completely.
That's incredible.
So,
now, before we started recording, Tyler, you were telling us the backstory of how you got into this, and you knew Kirk. So could you tell us that story? Because I think it's very important for our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So, I graduated from college with an actuary science degree, so I was a very strong numbers driven guy. Had a corporate career for a little while, and then decided that I wanted to get the best deal I could on buying a business, and I ended up buying auto garages in and around in inner city Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I had one of those buildings burned down. And the funny thing is that in the beginning, I was getting calls from people like us, and I was like, why would I'm not going to hire you. I know what I'm doing. And Kirk is the one that I ended up hiring. At that point, he was on the construction side. And I, I got to see firsthand the magic and the knowledge. And I've always kind of been the sales and marketing guy. And, um, we became friends going through the fire. It was kind of a mess. Kirk gave me the guidance through to kind of see like, hey, this will be okay. And we became friends through that process. And then Kirk had some life circumstance changes and was going to become an adjuster for Allstate in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Kirk isn't married, doesn't have kids, was like,
Wasn't then, yeah.
yeah, wasn't then, he's married now. Sorry, Dory, if Dory watches this. But
she will. She'll love it.
I said, Kirk, how much money do you need a year to live? And he said, $50,000. I said, done. We're going into business. Didn't know what it was going to be, but I guarantee you the first 50, because he is really in the continental United States is one of the experts in America. Is a very sought after expert witness. How many buildings have you repaired?
1,000.
And has built hospitals and just as
restaurants, pallet mills, industrial facilities. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the origin of what became Turner Adjusting Group.
And Tyler, interestingly enough, mistakenly had 2 insurance policies on his business personal property on his auto garage, which proved to be terribly lucrative for him.
Yep. Sometimes
really?
you make mistakes that are lucky.
Yeah, it's a fortunate mistake.
Hey everybody, it's Robert Helms, host of the Real Estate Guys radio program. And when you're not listening to our show, make sure you're tuned to Capital Hacking. You're going to dig it.
Well, let me drill in on that. Let's assume the loss was $1 million and he had 2 policies, each for $1 million. He can't ask for $2 million, right?
No, you can. Yeah. So what happens is the carriers share the exposure. Like if it was only $1 million loss, it would be 500 and 500. But if it was a $2 million loss, it would be $1 million and $1 million. So they co-insure the risk up to the extent of their exposure.
Yeah. So if it's defendably a $2 million loss, but you have a $1 million policy and a $1 million, that adds up to 2. But if it's only a $1 million loss, you said, then they both would have gotten away a little less painfully.
Correct.
I get it now.
Yeah. And actually, with every loss, when you sign a proof of loss, you're attesting that there is no other insurance for that reason. And if there is, you have to notify them so they can separate it.
All right. John and I are in the business of entertainment here. John does stand-up comedy every Thursday night after the show. I'm just kidding.
Try the veal.
But Tyler and Kirk, you got to tell one funny story. Okay. You got 1,000 stories, Kirk. What's one funny loss story?
I have one, but it might not be.
Yeah. All mine are off color.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So, all right. So one time we had a couple that had a fire. It was her house, but the policy covered her boyfriend, and it wasn't a huge loss. And we're in their bedroom, and they had this 18-inch wide headboard that when we opened up was filled with marital aids.
Yeah.
And she was like, please don't submit that in. Don't do any of that, blah, 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 blah. Well, it ended up that she had $4,000 or $5,000 worth of a collection. And she needed $4,000 or $5,000 more to hit the limit at her end. And she was basically like, here you go. Submitted to the carrier, no shame. She took the money, and then we found out that majority of them were his.
What about the world of, see, this is so interesting for those of us who own businesses and buildings. I mean, I did not know this world existed, like you said. It's our job as the building owner or the business owner to make a statement on the value. But you guys have the expertise in your industry When you say you were an expert witness, can you come in and be an expert on the value of all the contents as well? And you can make claim that refrigerator is worth that and that other device in the building is worth that. How did you go about becoming an expert in all those areas?
It's a process of time and research and study. And I would say that, the implementation of rebuilding a property kind of gets you on the path to becoming an expert, because it isn't just about putting together a value. We're talking about real world replacement. It isn't, hey, I went to Lowe's in my truck and I picked up a new refrigerator. It's what does it cost to get somebody in the truck to drive to Lowe's to get me the refrigerator, bring it back to my house, enter my house, install it, clean up after themselves, leave and discard the old one.
I'm going to ask you a very precise question about that. Let's talk about the refrigerator in a business. What if the refrigerator is a few years old? How do you value it when it's lost? Do you have to depreciate some of its value, or do you say it's a replacement value?
So we do two things. We do write it at its replacement value, and we also offer depreciation based on age, life, and useful condition.
Gotcha.
So most insurance policies, generally speaking, and we're speaking about property policies, cover things on an actual cash value basis and are then endorsed for replacement cost basis. So if you have that 10-year-old refrigerator in your house or your restaurant, your insurance company is going to pay you for a 10-year-old refrigerator of like kind and quality. When you then replace that, if it's damaged to the extent that it requires replacement, they will give you the difference between that 10-year-old refrigerator and what it costs for a new refrigerator.
Right. So this is actually a really, really, really important thing relative to all parts of the insurance. So whether it's contents or building, the first check you're always going to get is a depreciated amount of the damage. And whether in a structure, each individual material has a useful life. Right. Yep. So your granite countertop may be a 50-year life. Your linoleum flooring may be a 25-year life. And so your building settlement will also get depreciated based off of age and condition. And the difference between the two when you have replacement cost is if you had that $2,000 refrigerator and they paid you $1,000 actual cash value, that $1,000 difference is called recoverable depreciation. And interestingly enough, this portion of settling a claim specifically on the recoverable depreciation on a building is one of the areas that is often completely mismanaged by insurance. Okay. And so when you're looking at a claim, you have to look at it in three parts. The first is getting all the details, all the methods of construction, all of the valuation side correct. Second is, how's the IRS going to treat the money? The third is taking a plan between the two of them and looking at the settlement after you have a settlement number and saying, what does each one of my possible steps or paths forward do to my balance sheet? Right? And so many times, let's say, all right, John, you told me one time you owned a building in Northeast Pennsylvania, and a multi-unit.
Yep. Give
me a ballpark market value of that.
The one that burned down that we were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to rebuild it, it might have been like
$600. To sell it. If it was pre-fire, how much would you have sold it for?
Pre-fire with its age, probably $350.
Okay. So that's market value. How many square feet was it? Ballpark.
2,500.
Okay. Let's say that it's $300 a foot for that type of construction. On a replacement cost basis, you should have been insured for $750,000. 300 times 2,500. Replacement cost value is often in a lot of markets significantly higher than market value.
Yes.
So one of the things you can do, let's imagine that you settled that claim for replacement costs, that fire of $500,000, and it was depreciated down to $300,000. That $200,000 difference, what your policy says is that you can repair or replace the property. And if you incur the expense correctly, you will get the recoverable depreciation. So there's a scenario there where you can have a building. Do you want to spend $500,000 fixing a building that's only worth $350 when it's done?
No.
No. So one of the paths forward in the planning side for you is to look at it and say, okay, what happens if I sold the asset damage that burnt and went out and replaced the structure on another piece of land?
Okay.
What would that do for my balance sheet? And many, many, many times, that scenario allows you to really add equity to your balance sheet, and you don't have to deal with the construction side of it, right?
Wow.
In other markets, where my house in Florida is, it's inversed, right? So
Yeah.
it's insured for less than the market value because the construction cost is less than the market value. And
Right.
so that planning side is really, really, really important when you're going through a loss. Everybody has the natural instinct of, I got to fix this.
Yeah.
But what you need to do is understand the rules of war, settle the claim appropriately and equitably, and then make a decision what makes sense to move forward.
And you would have to do that for the IRS purposes. Would you have to do it in the same calendar year?
So interestingly enough, for how the IRS, and I'm going to give myself a disclaimer. I'm very experienced in this, but I am not a CPA.
Actually, I'm going to make a non-disclaimer disclaimer. Everything he's saying is factual. Just disclaimer. I like it.
So the IRS treats it as deferred income. So it's better than a 1031 exchange because you have 2 entire full tax years to spend the money.
Okay.
And the IRS doesn't care where you spend the money. The IRS cares that you spend it on the same asset class. So let's imagine you have a $100,000 settlement and you have 10 other properties. You could do $10,000 renovations on those non-fire damage properties. You just can't deduct the cost of it. You can't, because it's basis free money, you can't also deduct it, right?
Kind of understand that. I think I do. When I listen to this again in the car, I will actually perceive that better. I think I get it.
It's complicated, but these are all things that go into the planning side. And when you put all these pieces together, you really, if you're insured correctly, really can have a really equitable outcome. Now, one of the mistakes that we see happen all the time with investors is they start collecting properties. They start with 1. The next thing you know, they've got 13.
Okay.
And they're buying individual policies. And at the end of 1 year, when they're going to go, wow, 13 policies times $2,500 a policy. Man, I spent $30-some thousand on insurance this year. This is crazy, right? And they go out and they end up buying cheaper policies. They beat on their brokers and they buy cheaper policies. We're here to tell you that you should never buy an ACV policy. You should always, for everybody that's listening, this is a super important thing. Always use a broker and always ask your broker in an email the question, does this value meet my co-insurance requirements of my policy? Right?
Wait. First, you said the word ACB. We don't know what that means. And what is co-insurance? Both of those.
ACB is an actual cash value policy.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have replacement costs. So you only get the depreciated amount on the settlement.
Okay.
Okay. Every policy has, well, not every, the majority of policies
They all do.
have co-insurance clauses. A BOP form doesn't.
But the deductible's a co-insurance.
So they've got co-insurance requirements. So let's use John's example. He had a property that should have been insured on a replacement cost basis, which means if this property explodes and is gone, take the square footage times the methods of construction, $750,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if John had 100% co-insurance requirement, he would be required to have 100% of that $750,000 in value. So $750 in coverage.
Yeah.
If he only had $375 because he paid $350 or was worth $350 on the market, and he said, man, if this burnt down and I got paid $375,000, this would be a great day. He only has 50% of his requirements. So what's going to happen? You, John, would co-insure 50% of any loss. So if you had a $200,000 fire, they're only writing you a check for $100,000. And investors often make this mistake in an effort to reduce coverage, and they don't realize what they're doing. Go ahead.
I'm going to tell you something right now. This is so important for people like us that have real estate parcels and manage really expensive insurance. It sounds like you guys know how to liaison with brokers even before the fire. Like, do you help clients?
We do. Once you're our client, you can. We're not guys. We don't charge an hourly rate. We only work really on contingencies. But if you're our client or a friend or a friend's friend or a referral or whatever
Or a
it is,
listener to this podcast.
or listener to, we will walk through, spend some time helping you understand things. But one of the key things that you can do relative to coinsurance, because that's a big
Well, I would say you kind of have to explain it a little slower, because are you saying that if he had $350,000 on that $350,000 market value house, that's what it said his package was, $350, but it burns down to zero, it's dust, he doesn't want to rebuild it, would he not get $350 in insurance?
No. It depends on what the loss is. So he would have to be able to prove, if he had 50% of coverage, he would have to be able to prove that he had a $700,000 loss to be able to get the full 350. Most times that doesn't happen. Let's say he has a bad fire and it's only $300,000 of damage. He's only ever going to get 50% of the damage because he violated his coinsurance clause.
I got you. So
Okay?
he should have asked his insurance broker. His broker should have said at replacement cost it's $700,000.
So one of the things that I want your listeners to take away from today is to write an email, and always do an email to your broker, and do not buy direct online. Never buy direct online. Always buy from a broker, because this stuff gets avoided.
And an independent broker, not
Yep.
one that writes for one carrier, someone that uses multiple carriers and can shop you out.
And write the email and say, Mr. Broker, I want to make sure that this value that I'm insuring it for meets all of the co-insurance requirements of the policy. Because if they sell you something that doesn't after that, and you have a terrible fire, and you all of a sudden you're realizing, oh my goodness, I'm in violation, and I'm going to take this big hit. You have their errors and emissions insurance to cover that difference by using a broker.
Wow. That's some great nuggets right there, John. We just made somebody some real money on this show.
Well, you're transferring risk. That's what insurance is.
And so I have another question following up here. When you do have, let's say, a flood or a fire or something like that, when insurance has to be used, should someone always call someone like you guys? Should they ever rely on their own insurance for them to send out an adjuster, or should they always call you?
Hi, this is Melanie McCallan. Josh and I are just so grateful for the many investors who have already joined us at Accountable Equity. Accountable Equity is so much more than a capital group. It's really a community of accredited investors that want to learn and grow together. I just want to personally invite you, if you want to find out more about this type of investment and see if it's right for you and your family, please visit us at accountableequity.com.
Hey, it's Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. Enjoy.
So it's a tough question. The answer is, if you can if you're an investor and you're building a portfolio of real estate, you need to have a relationship with someone like us prior. Okay? Because if you had a fire and you sent me your policy and we went and looked at it and said, you know what? John he's going to get the money. We're not going to take a percentage of that fee. We're going to say, go ahead and work with the carrier. A good public adjuster really recognizes that they're a fiduciary for their client. And so we do our best to, tell people when they don't need help. In general, what would you say percentage of the time they need help? It's not always, but it's not 90. It's probably 90% of the time. Right? Because when you look at coverages, just because your declaration page says $350,000 doesn't mean there's not a broadening endorsement that adds another 25%. Doesn't mean that there's not a 5% debris removal extension. Doesn't mean that there's not 5% more for landscaping. Doesn't mean that there's not 10% more for law and ordinance. Right? So that base limit is your bucket, and then you add these layers on top. And when you align the presentation of the claim with the coverages that are there, that's when you really can get it. But it's hard to say you're not going to get the policy limit on a policy when your building's a hole in the ground, right? But that's where we get hired a lot by big losses because the planning side is equally as valuable. Most carriers push people to get going on repairs right away because that's their method. They've got contractors on a program that they refer. Some of them are great contractors, some of them are not. Whatever number comes up is who they refer. It's on like a Rolodex. And the reality of it is that sometimes it doesn't make sense to do the repair.
I'll tell you what, I will tell you that we haven't had a show like this in a long time with such great professional advice. I feel like people should pay us for this episode, John.
Well, I'm going to give you a few more interesting
good.
things. Yeah. All right. So for your investors nationally, right? Because you guys have a pretty decent size audience, right?
Yep. Very big.
So one of the things that a lot of states do is they've written laws that require insurance companies to send a percentage of a settlement related to a fire into the municipalities to be held in escrow to avoid abandoned and blighted property, right? So like, let's say John had a $350,000 market value building and he got $700,000 in Scranton and he just sells it damaged and walks away, or some people just walk away from it and don't pay taxes. It's bad for the neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Right. So in Pennsylvania, they allow you to have 13.3% of any fire that's more than 60% of the policy value that gets sent to the carrier. So on a $300,000 loss, there's $40,000 that goes to the carrier, or to the municipality to hold in escrow until you get a new CO or it's a grass seeded lot and all the fire damage is removed.
Okay.
Investors out there, when you see a building that's had fire damage, you should do a Freedom of Information Act request to the municipality and ask them for building 123 Main Street, is there any money in fire escrow withholding for that building? And if there is, track down the previous owner, because that money is still due the previous owner. Many times they just walk away from it. And I can tell you that there are municipalities in Pennsylvania that have millions of dollars in it.
Whoa.
For 30 years.
Okay, so for could you just reverse engineer that, Tyler? Could you just do a Freedom of Information Act on saying how much does this town have in escrow?
So depends on the town. You can.
Because then you could like reverse engineer and say, oh, I want the list of all those lots. I'm going to contact all those people.
We did that. We did it to every municipality in Pennsylvania.
We think alike.
What's that?
We're thinking alike. I love this guy.
Yeah. And you can ask them, some Freedom of Information Act departments say you need to give more detail. We're not going to give you the entire list. Some do. But what you can do, specifically, it works best if you buy the property, then go back to the previous owner and take an assignment of their rights. Okay. And so let's say Josh's building had $40,000 there. I would go to Josh and say, Josh, I believe there's some money left. You're obviously never going to fix this. This is found money for you. I'll give you $5,000 for the right to try and go recover this money when I do the repairs. And sometimes people will do it.
Yeah.
But it's not the municipality's job once somebody fixes John's building to go find John 20 years later. And my understanding is that they earn the interest on the money. So there's not much motivation either. So that's one kind of nugget on the investor side. And the other thing is, depending on the state you're in, if there was a house that was for sale and then had a fire, sometimes you can go in and buy that house and take the position in the policy as the insured. And you can use the insurance proceeds to renovate the building. But often, you got to be careful because sometimes that's not the best thing to do for the person that had the fire. Sometimes it is. But investor-wise, you have any comments on that?
What a great strategy.
I mean, I think the buy on the back end is a good strategy. If someone, again, if it was listed for sale and they wanted to get out of it, and they were looking and hoping that somebody was going to buy it. Now they have a fire and they're at a loss and they don't know what to do. Sometimes that's a good thing. You can make it, be lucrative for you, but you're also rescuing somebody. And at the end of the day, I find value in helping people and making money.
Hey guys, it's John Vroman, founder of Front Row Dads, and you're listening to Capital Hacking, the best investment you'll make today.
I have a different question for you two guys as we wrap here. John, do you have a question?
No, I'm just writing notes.
Me too. I'm like doing stuff with this business info. Here's what I would say. When we look at your business, it feels like you have this awesome capital hacking opportunity, which is you're in the right space to do a lot of tangential revenue streams. Right? You do the estimating, Kirk, of the replacement. So you must have a lot of connections to subcontractors and general contractors. You obviously know these techniques about acquiring and using burnt buildings. You guys have a lot of halos or capital hacking strategies around you. Are there any unique strategies you're using to help your personal portfolio or your business portfolio grow because of the universe you guys are living in?
Sure. The single hardest thing to do after a residential fire, your house burns down and you have kids in high school and you're in a community, is to find a medium-term rental.
That's true.
That is like kind and quality standard of living. You have a 3,500 square foot house. You don't want to be in a 1,200 square foot apartment.
That's right.
And you've got a dog and a cat. And the insurance carrier only wants to rent that building or authorize a 6-month lease. Well, John, you're a landlord. Josh, you're a landlord.
Well, not really. No, I'm in the hospitality business.
Do you accept 3 or 4 or 5-month leases, John?
No,
and the carriers know that too. And so on a homeowner's policy, most policies have additional living expense coverage. So what we've done is we've built a portfolio of fully furnished single houses.
Genius.
That we then rent back to carriers for above market rates. And the rate is dictated based off of where the property was lost, right? And so if you have a house that, we had one this year that they had 6 people, they had 2 pets, they had to be in a school district because they had to hit the bus system because both parents worked an hour and a half away and they left really early in the morning. And there was nothing that existed. So we approached our clients and we said, look, we can't find anything. The carriers, housing vendors can't find anything. There's literally nothing available. Would you be okay if we went out and bought and furnished a place for you? So we went out and bought and furnished a house. It was around $600,000 all in. We got approval from the carrier before doing that. And then we signed a 1-year lease for $126,000.
Whoa.
That's awesome.
So
I love you.
we do that often.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's incredible.
We should even talk about what we were just doing before this.
Please. Right. This is it. Bring it home.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
It's got to be quick. Go quick, guys.
All right, real quick.
I love it.
So we had a client that owns a veterinary business, and you have business income coverage. So your lost profits and your continuing expense. Well, this policy also covered for a year all of their staff's payroll. So the exposure to the carrier, should they not reopen, is $8-9 million in business income coverage, not in business personal property, not in building.
Wow.
There happened to be a building 2 doors down that worked perfectly for this.
Oh my gosh.
So we went to our client and said, look, you've got extra expense coverage, which is unlimited coverage that you can use to mitigate that business income loss. So we said, what if we bought this building? We'll get the carrier to pay $250,000 to do a fit out for you and lease it to you for a year. And so we just got from the forensic accountant, we just got verbal approval. It's not in writing yet, so I don't want to jinx anything. But essentially, we're buying our client a building to use for a year, and the carrier is going to pay for all of the fit out, get them up and going, because it's going to reduce their stuff. And when it's done, we'll have a really good commercial building that has a beautiful fit out, that is very marketable, and that our client is happy because they're not losing clients. They're keeping their people working. They're doing all the stuff. And so when you know the ins and outs of the policies, it's a really good integration into the real estate world. And
I think this is fantastic. You just taught the ultimate capital hacking strategy, which is while you're managing and furrowing millions of dollars in the normal business flow, how can you add supplemental strategies that are accretive and beneficial to everybody and create new wealth streams? It's a really important premise of business owners. So thank God for you guys. John?
Yeah. So how can our listeners follow up and connect with you, Tyler and Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, so we believe very much in adding value, right? And so we're happy to have conversations. You know, I don't want calls on little tiny losses, right? People can reach out and we can give guidance, but we get tons of calls on small stuff. It doesn't work for, how we have our business set up with our staff to be able to do that. But if you are a big real estate owner, we are happy to review your policies, your leases. We were flown out to a CEO group in Lake Tahoe last year. And in this group, there was a few billionaires. There was guys down lower that have legal teams that have all this stuff. And one of the guys provided us pre the meeting because we did a live review of everything in front of the whole group.
Wow.
And we found that attorneys and accountants missed a $2 million hole in insurance that nobody had thought about. And so for big building owners, for big business owners, if you own a multifamily portfolio and you want us to look at the stuff, we will gladly look at it and have conversations. We don't sell insurance, so there's no gain for that. Yep. But there is positive for us if we have relationships you have a huge loss. It's a positive thing for you and for us.
And what's the website that you want us to send everybody to?
It's www.turner, TURNER, adjusting, ADJUSTING.com.
That's a tough one to spell.
TurnerAdjusting.com.
Woohoo!
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Thanks for the great content.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yeah.
That's all.
Damn straight. We just got
buddy.
We got to the end of another great show. And everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.